Right.
You see what I mean by these exactly like paths.
Yes.
Cool. I will see you in a bit.
Why do you keep comparing me to a random guy?
It's not comparison, bro. It's like.
No,
see,
like what is it? Yes.
Hey.
Yours.
Yeah. That's why I kept it out, bro. I was like, yeah, I know you would
Not a good
snap
thing
me.
to keep all in front of me.
I know you will snap me.
I would feel snapped if you show me snaps.
Yeah. CV is like.
What?
Making my CV, bro. It's annoying.
For what?
Jimbo asked me to send my CV to her. I'll tell you. I'll go IG.
Why not later? Why not later?
Because I had my old CV and then I just copy pasted that.
Well, LaTeX is so convenient, I can never go back.
Because in my old CV, when I applied for this thing,
What thing?
for
Uni.
Right? Yeah, it was like some shit like this. Okay, I don't even know.
Pie chart in your CV, what is that, bro? What is this, bro?
Core scholastic skills, I put pie chart.
Bro.
I don't even know why. Okay. I don't know why I did this, but I did it. And this is the CV I used to apply for all graduate programs. No wonder I got rejected. So now like I'm just like preparing this simple shit.
I have the plainer CV.
No, plain CVs are good only, bro. Like just get to the point. That's all.
Like I looked up I'll just keep this. I looked up a lot when I was making my CV on how CV should be for jobs or PhD students. Just like single column, blank CV.
Yeah.
That's what I did.
Yeah. No, this thing also it's for PhD only.
PhD, Jinbo's offering.
No, so she's like, see you in.
Bye. Yeah.
So basically,
No, I can't find it. It was with me. Oh, shit.
Hi, Neil Beck. I was a doctor in Perth, Western Australia for 53 years. First of all in hospitals, then for many years as a family doctor in the suburbs. Where in the early days, because we didn't have a medical school in Perth and there was a shortage of doctors, we did a lot of things that today are done by specialists. And then I had my own addiction clinic for 5 years, in which I treated 5,000 addicts in 40,000 dual diagnosis consultations, which were very successful. I found that 95% of people with an addiction had serious mental health disorders which had caused their addiction. Some people thought that addiction caused mental health disorders. Well, it doesn't make them better, it makes them worse, and sometimes gives them new ones. But the original problem in 95% of cases was a mental health problem which wasn't diagnosed and treated well, and the people got desperate or careless and started to take street stuff, and the street stuff was all addictive, and addictive stuff always gives people great relief to begin with in small amounts, but it loses its effect and they have to take more and more until their serious mental health disorders have become the disaster of an addiction. Now, I've been doing this live streaming for 6 or 8 months because I found that's what a lot of people prefer. And I used to get usually between 3,000 and 4,000 viewers each time, but now it's much less. I once got 4,700 viewers, once got 8,600, and once got 8,700 viewers in one session of an hour and a quarter. But I think because I repeat myself a lot, I'm saying the same stuff over and over again, because although mental health and addiction seems to a lot of people like to be a great disaster, in actual fact there's a limited number of aspects to it, and if you stick to the most important ones, which I try to do, there's not that many, so I repeat myself quite a lot. And I'm partly telling you this because I'm going to repeat tonight what I talked about last night when I had 1,600 viewers. What I mainly talked about last night was mental health care blind areas, because what I discovered was that there was a massive amount of mental health problems, that a lot of people got no help with their mental health problems, and almost nobody that I could see got enough help. Nobody else was doing dual diagnosis in Australia that I could find at that time. I'm very happy to say that now you can go online and find lots of people doing dual diagnosis treatment for addicts, but that's the only thing that works. The only thing that works for addiction is dual diagnosis, which is diagnosing and treating the mental health illnesses at the same time as treating the addiction. If you don't treat the mental health illnesses which are the cause, it's very hard to get people off their drugs of addiction, and they're very likely to relapse. So dual diagnosis is what they need. Unfortunately now some people, quite a lot of people, are getting dual diagnosis. But that was a big blind spot in the mental health care thing. And I found quite a few big blind spots, which was why so many people couldn't get the mental health care they needed because it wasn't being treated very successfully. So there were long queues, long waiting lists, and that was partly due to the fact that there were only two tools used in mental health, and they have both got big weaknesses. That is medicines, which has got the weakness of addictiveness of a lot of medicines, and it's got the weakness of it that it's too slow. Tablets and capsules are too slow. And the other tool in mental health is talk therapy, psychotherapy, counselling, CBT, whatever you like to call it, talk therapy. And talk therapy's got two big weaknesses. One is it's very slow. You need an hour with a new patient to really come to grips with things, and that takes too much time. And it's too expensive, because to be a therapist you have to have a lot of training, at least a 4-year Bachelor of Psychology, and to be a lot of psychologists have a 6 or 7 year PhD, and to be a psychiatrist takes about 10 or 12 years, because you have to do a general 6-year medical degree to start with, then a couple of years of general medical practice, and then 3, 4 or 5 years of postgraduate training in psychiatry. So it's a very those people are intelligent, and they've done long training courses, and they have to be paid well. But since I talked about causes last night, I've spent a whole day going into it in more detail, and I'm going to repeat it tonight. I hope that it won't be a problem for you. And I'm going to read most of it, because I don't want to miss anything out. I want to tell you the exact facts. So we've got about 8 or 9 blind spots, which are why mental health care is so slow and unsuccessful, which causes long waiting lists on which people get worse. Many go to hospital, go to prison, go to a cemetery, or become criminals selling, pushing addictive substances to pay for their own addictions. So the first blind spot in mental health is causes. It's much easier to help fix problems if you understand what caused them. People are much more likely to have to stay on long-term treatment or to relapse if they've still got what originally caused the problem. The cause is often a significant problem that people need help with. For example, anxiety or insomnia that caused a presenting problem of alcoholism or Valium addiction. They need help for both. We haven't really done our job properly if a person quits alcohol or Valium that still suffers badly from anxiety and insomnia. The second blind area is that people are not single, solo. People are very much members of a stream of life. They're all members of families, and most mental health problems are family problems. And if you treat people as a single solo person, which happens so often, that's a blind area. It's not very successful, and they're likely to relapse. Mental health problems are nearly always family problems. It's much easier to help problems if you and the person concerned understand their family. People are much more likely to have to stay on long-term treatment or to relapse if they don't understand how their family affects them. The cause is often a significant problem that people need help with. for example, communication or relationship skills or honesty or fairness or unselfishness. And if you don't treat these causes, it's hard to help people get better. But so often mental health care treats people as if they're single, solo, isolated people, which they're not. A third blind area is that a lot of mental health disorders is transgenerational trauma. But I never heard it mentioned in my 53 years as a doctor. A very distressing event in a family usually causes problems for one or more of the people in the next 3 generations. So if there's no clear cause for a mental health patient's problems, or they don't respond to the usual treatments in a reasonable time, their parents, grandparents and great-grandparents' lives should be checked for major problems. Someone usually knows about such problems, but they may have been kept from the children, and in my family, ChatGPT searches were very helpful, because the problems in my family mostly started with my great-grandmother. She had 9 children. The first one when she was only 16, 4 sons by the time she was 22, and then her alcoholic husband deserted her, and at 24 she had a daughter by a boyfriend that she wasn't married to. And then she had another daughter, and we don't know who the father was. And then she got married again at the age of 30 and had 2 babies in 10 months, and then a 3rd baby, and then died from cancer at the age of 42. Cancer at 42 is due to a weak immune system. We have an immune system of cells, antibodies and chemicals in every part of our body that fight infections, allergies, inflammation, autoimmune diseases and cancers. And she died at 42 because of cancer, because her immune system was weak, because she'd had so much stress in her life. Can you imagine the sleep deprivation and the fatigue and the anxiety of 9 children, 2 of whom died in childhood, from 3 different fathers? Terrible. So transgenerational trauma is one of the major causes of mental health problems, and it's rarely mentioned. So if you can't find the cause of a mental health problem, or you think you found the cause but the usual treatment that usually works doesn't work, there's probably transgenerational trauma, and you need to go back to the mother and father, and the mother and father's mother and father, and the mothers and fathers' mothers and fathers, to the great-grandparents, and find the major problems that they had, because it was probably a major problem that caused the present person's problems. The 4th big blind area in mental health I found was habits. Habits, including 60 to 65% of our life, that's including sleep, which is a habit, 60 to 65% of our life is habits. It's things that happen without our conscious attention or conscious effort. And we have to have a lot of habits because our brain has so much to do, so many things to manage, that it consciously focuses on the very difficult things, the new things, the things that need to be changed, and as many things as possible that we do over and over and over again become automatic, subconscious habits. And a lot of mental health illness is bad habits. So for instance, anxiety. A person who suffers from anxiety problems had anxiety so many times over and over and over again that the underlying triggers and electrical messages from our brain along our nerves and chemical messages from our brain and glands in our blood became so strong that they were automatic and happened without conscious attention and very hard to stop. But so a lot of mental health care should be teaching people how to make new good habits and how to break harmful old habits. Habits, very important, a big blind area in mental health. If you've got a problem in your life, clearly decide if making a habit will make that problem better, will make your life better. So you really want to make that habit. And when you really want to make that habit, then repeat it very often. So its triggers and the electrical flows along the nerves and the chemical flows in the blood become strong. If I move my hand like that, that's because an electrical message passed down a nerve to the muscles in my arm. Everything that happens in us, everything that we do, is the result of electrical and chemical triggers and messages. And when they're repeated over and over again, they become strong, they become automatic. So if you've got a problem and you think that making a new habit will make your life, will overcome that problem and make your life much better, you need to think about it and talk about it till you really want to make that habit. And then when you really want to make that habit, you repeat it very often. And repetition is what makes it into a habit, makes anything into a habit that is a habit. And how do you do that? Well, you start by being very clear that you want that habit, and then you make it, doing that habit, convenient, simple, easy, fast, enjoyable, and with a convenient reward for every time you do it. And if you want to break a habit, you do the same and the opposite. If you want to break a habit, you first of all think about it, talk to other people about it, read about it, and become very sure that your life will be better if you break that habit. So you want to break that habit. You can't break habits you don't want to break. So you have to reach a point where you really want to break that habit. And then you make that habit inconvenient. Where am I? You make it inconvenient, difficult, slow, unpleasant, and you reward yourself every time you delay or do less of it or don't do it. That's how you break a habit. Get very sure that you want to break the habit. Then make it inconvenient, slow, difficult, unpleasant, and you reward yourself when you delay doing the habit, or you do less of the habit, or you don't do the habit. For instance, smoking, a very strong addiction that kills 7 million people a year in the world, and for everyone it kills, it ruins the life of quite a lot of other people. So a good habit, a bad habit to try to break. And what you do is you make it inconvenient. Don't have the cigarettes in your pocket. Have them out the back somewhere, or leave them in the car or somewhere. Every time you want a cigarette, you have to go out and get one, so it's inconvenient. And then you smoke less. When you've smoked 3/4 of a cigarette, you throw the last quarter away, so you smoke less. And you may do other things to make it inconvenient and slow and unpleasant. Like you might say you've got to do 25 push-ups or 10 minutes on your exercise bike before you have a cigarette. And then you reward yourself. The best rewards, there are lots of different rewards. Congratulate yourself. That's a sort of reward. So you did well. Congratulate yourself. Or put a score somewhere so that when you got a certain number of scores, you get something, or you use something that you really like. Buy a new book, or a new piece of music, or some food that you love which hasn't got sugar in it. To help overcome, to provide rewards, I've got a new tool coming. This is a pocket dispenser which you carry in your pocket, which has got lovely tasting fruit powder in it, and fruit powder is very healthy. It's got fibre and it doesn't have much sugar. The sugar is natural, it's not added cane sugar, and it has a lovely taste. And fruit powders are becoming big worldwide. They're being used more and more to make thick shakes and drinks and some desserts and sweets. And so this has 45 mils of fruit powder in it. We've only got the initial ones, and we're sorting out a few bugs, but I use it myself every day as a part of the proving and improving situation. And my favourite is vanilla powder. So this one's got vanilla powder in, and whenever I feel like a nice taste, I just whiz it out and I do that. Got a lovely taste. So you can do that to reward yourself every time you think about or do a good habit that you're trying to do often. The more enjoyable the little reward is, the easier it'll be to repeat it often. Or you can use that to delay a habit you're trying to break. Because the way that you break the triggers and the electrical and chemical messages that underline every habit, everything we do, everything that happens in us, is by delaying them, doing less of them, eventually sometimes being able to miss them and not do them. The strict disciplinarians say you should just go cold turkey. Well, that's all right, except the fact that it doesn't work very often. I think it was Ronald Reagan's wife said, just say no. If it was that easy, we'd have a lot less problems in the world, but it's not that easy. And most people who try to go cold turkey, after 2, 3 or 4 days, they relapse, or they manage to go for 6 or 8 weeks, and then something happens and they relapse. So with smoking, every time you think of having a cigarette, you drop some lovely tasting fruit powder on your tongue and you enjoy the taste. And when the taste starts to wear off, you have another taste. And you do that as long as you can and delay smoking a cigarette. So the first time you might be able to delay it for 10 or 15 minutes. But when you delay it and then you only smoke 3/4 of the whole one, the addiction gets weaker, and then it's easier to go for 15 or 20 minutes and to only smoke half the cigarette. So with this system, not with this system because it's new, but with other rewards and methods, we've been able to get people to usually reduce their smoking by 1/4 in somewhere between 1 and 3 weeks, and then another 1/4 to a half in another 1 to 3 weeks, and then another 1/4, and then they're down to smoking so little, and the underlying triggers and electrical and chemical messages have weakened to the point where quitting after 8, 10 or 12 weeks is easy. And there is a problem with the relapse, which we hope to overcome with this, because after you've stopped smoking, you still have this in your pocket wherever you go and anywhere, even driving the car or in a meeting or something. You can just whiz it out and have a taste and prevent a relapse. And the longer you prevent the relapse, the weaker the craving gets until it's not a problem. Well, it's not a problem if you've found the causes and fixed the causes as well. If you haven't fixed the causes, relapse is much more likely. Another weakness, another blind spot in mental health, I believe, is that we manage the problem wrongly. What we do is we talk to people, we diagnose the problem, and then we say, you've got major depression, you've got anxiety disorders, you've got panic attacks, you've got ADD, you've got... Now, for some people that's a relief. Oh, at last I know what's wrong with me, and a lot of other people have got the problem, so it's a relief. But for a lot of people that's a big downer. Wow, I've got this mental disease. So I think working that way, giving people a diagnosis as the main thing, is a blind area. What you have to do is you have to find out what they want and need to have a better life. Because if they find out what they want, need to have a better life, and they think about it and talk about it, it's going to motivate them, enable and empower them. So if you tell someone you've got panic disorder, or you've got severe general anxiety or social phobia, that's not as good as helping them to realize that what they want and need is to be calmer and to be more relaxed. You need to be calmer and to be more relaxed, and that's because you've got an anxiety problem. Sure, you still give them perhaps the same treatment, but they're motivated. They realize their life is going to be better. They're going to be calmer instead of panicking. They're going to be calmer instead of having social phobia. They're going to be more relaxed instead of being uptight. So a blind spot is just giving them a diagnosis rather than explaining how this is going to make their life better. Another blind area is that we don't teach people enough to help themselves. I believe there's never going to be enough mental health workers to do all the mental health work that needs to be done, which means there's always going to be long waiting lists, and people are going to not get enough treatment because the therapist has to stop and treat someone else who's even worse than they are before a person's really well and strong. So the only way, if you can't get enough help, is to help yourself. And that's a blind area in mental health. We don't teach people to help themselves. Helping themselves should be the top subject in school, and it's not even a part of our education. Self-help, and the problem is the tools. The two mental health tools are medicines. To get a medicine, you've got to get a prescription. Only a doctor can write a prescription. You don't have to get a prescription for heroin or cocaine or ice. So it's easier, faster in a crisis. Troubled people always have crises, and it's in a crisis that they get the street stuff. They've just got to have relief, and the street stuff gives them, they can get it quickly, and they only need a small amount which they can afford to begin with, and it gives them fast relief. But they then have to take more and more and more of it. So self-help, people must have tools that they can do themselves, that they don't have to have a prescription or somebody who's done a 4-year psych degree or a 6 or 7 year PhD or a 12-year psychiatry training. They need to have tools that they can use quickly, anytime, anywhere, at no or very low cost. So self-help. I've spent the last 27 years developing tools to help people help themselves, mostly without a qualified doctor or psychologist having to take part. we need doctors and we need psychologists, but there'll never be enough of them. So if people, some people can do 3/4 of what they need through self-help. Some people can do a half. Some people can do a quarter. Some people can't do any. Their problems are too great, or they're too limited in their ability. But if the people could do half of what needs to be done by self-help, then there'd be enough doctors and psychologists to do the rest of it. And the waiting lists would disappear. Because that's another blind area of mental health. We don't feel the urgency to get to mental health problems as soon as they start. And early is so much better, easier, faster, cheaper than late. If you've got a kid that's got ADD and it's possible through family self-help for them to make the diagnosis and to realize that a good diet and a lot of exercise is a very important part of treating attention deficit disorder. And that junk food and sitting in front of television all day or some other screen all day is a big cause of people not getting better from ADD. Of course, I think that most ADD people should also have medicines. But sadly, the 3 main medicines for ADD are all addictive. So not only does it require a doctor's prescription, your family doctor can't prescribe it, or can't prescribe it initially. It has to be prescribed by a pediatrician or a psychiatrist. And they're far away and they've got waiting lists and they're costly. And in my city, Perth, the Children's Hospital didn't even have an ADD clinic. They might now, I don't know, but they didn't when I first got involved. So, and there's a stigma with mental health conditions. We look down on people that have got a mental health condition and have to go to a psych and have to get medicines. So they don't, they're reluctant to say they've got a problem, reluctant to seek help. So it's partly the social stigma, but also I think it's a blind spot in mental health that we don't realise that a new mental health problem is an emergency. If you treat it early, as soon as the marriage breaks up, as soon as the business goes bad, as soon as a person loses their job, as soon as they crash their car, as soon as whatever happens is dealt with early, the quicker and easier it is. It's more obvious what the problem is. It's one problem. It's more obvious what caused it and what's aggravating it. And but if you wait 5, 10, 15, 20 years until it's so bad that you can't keep going or you crash, as in the old days we used to say they had a nervous breakdown. Fortunately, we do a bit better than that now, but then problems have caused problems that have caused problems that have caused problems, and they've become more and more deeply entrenched. The ADD small child was hyperactive and impulsive and difficult, and that was made worse because very often one of their parents, sometimes both of their parents, had ADD. So the family was poor. The employment wasn't very good. Both the mother and father had to work, and the kid got neglected. Lock-key kid. And when they got to school, there were problems in the classroom, and they copped a lot of flack, and they didn't get a good education, and so they left school early with a poor education and didn't get very good employment and not very well paid. So problems lead to problems lead to problems. So we must try to fix problems as early as possible, and that's much more possible when there's much more self-help and when there's very good tools. If a problem occurs on Saturday night and it's going to be months before we can see a psych, it's much better if we can whiz our phone out, tap the App Store or Google Play button, download the Mental Fix It app, which is the name of my mental health app, the Mental Fix It app, which is free, in a few seconds, and then in 5 minutes choose and tap answers to all the key questions about mental health and get an instant report coming up on the phone screen. And the instant report tells you, watch these 6 under-a-minute videos, they will help your problems the most. And in 6 minutes you watch these 6 videos. You think, oh God, that was very helpful. I'll watch that one 3 times, and you watch it again tomorrow and the next day. And by Monday you don't need a doctor, or the need is much less urgent. You're getting the situation under control. You know what the problems are, because there's never only one problem. If you've got one problem, you got 2 or 3 problems. And the problem with talk therapy is it's so slow, you usually don't get past the biggest problem, or the biggest and the second biggest problem, and the 2, 3 or 4 other smaller problems which are still very significant, which never get attention. But the Mental Fix It app tells you which 6 under-a-minute videos are going to help you most, and you can watch them in 6 minutes, and you can watch them anytime, anywhere, as often as you need to, until you really understand them. It also tells you which medicines are most likely to work, and of course you've still got to get a prescription from a doctor, and the doctor has to agree with that. But if you go to see your doctor and you say, I've done this app 10 times and I'm pretty sure, and here's a copy of the report, and I'm pretty sure it's right that I've got major depression and anxiety disorder and insomnia, and that this medicine is going to help me because it's not addictive, and blah blah blah. So the instant report give you the 4 things you need. The videos you need to watch, which you can watch immediately, anytime, anywhere, and as often as you need to. The medicines that you can probably help, and then you can consult Dr. Google and read up about these different medicines and have an intelligent conversation with your doctor about it. And thirdly, it gives you a list of everything you've tapped as a problem in descending order of importance. The most serious one, say schizophrenia or childhood sexual abuse or post-traumatic disorder, has got a high score of 15, and moderate anxiety has got a medium score of 8, and mild sleep disorder has got a score of 4. So it lists all your problems in descending order, and you can see those things, and you can't fix everything at once. You pick off one thing after another and work on it until it's fixed. And every time you fix one, even if it's a small one, you feel a bit happier, a bit stronger, and you're a bit better problem solver. And then if the biggest problems were too hard to deal with at the beginning, you can deal with them at the end. So fixing problems early. And blame. Blame is such a big blind spot in mental health. It makes so many mental health problems worse. You end up thinking, oh, my bloody mother, she didn't do what I needed. And so we're hostile to her, and then she's defensive perhaps and hostile back, and it just gets worse. Don't do the blame game. What you need to do is to find out exactly what happened and exactly why it happened. Now that may be difficult. You may not be able to get exactly what happened, and you may not be able to get exactly why it happened, but what you usually find is that if it was maternal neglect, which sadly it often is, for various good reasons, your mother was only 16, like my great-grandmother when she had her first baby, didn't know what she was doing, married a drunk. So your mother didn't know how to raise you when you were a baby. When you cried, she didn't know exactly what you needed. In my practice, what I found was that when it got to the third baby, the mothers would say, oh, they're just a dream. They just eat and sleep and you wouldn't know they're in the house. And the mothers would be thinking they got a very good baby, but I knew that baby had a very good mother. And why was she a good mother? Because that was her third child. She'd learned on the first and the second and the third child. I'm dealing with a family member now who's the fourth child, who's the best of the four children. What you nearly always find is that if your mother neglected you, it was because she was inexperienced or because she had too much to do. She had too many babies. I still remember this happened 50 years ago. I can still picture this poor lady in her 20s coming to me and saying, I've had a baby every year for 4 years and I can't cope. Too busy. In those days, most women didn't go to work, but now most women do go to work. So maybe she's got babies to rear, but she also has to go to work. She's at work from 9 till 5:30, and then she's up during the night tending to the baby who needs to be fed or got a wet nappy or something. So too busy. Inexperienced, too busy, unsupported. Unfortunately, many mothers are unsupported. The mother is the main baby support, and the mother needs support, and the support should usually mainly be her husband and her mother. But a lot of mothers don't have support. And a fourth problem is the mothers may be sick. Depression is quite a common problem around childbirth, and there are various reasons for that. But if the mother is sick, it's a big problem for her childbirth. And then another thing that you so often find is the person who neglected or hurt you did that because they were hurt or neglected. And they were hurt or neglected by someone who hurt or neglected them. And if you do the blame game, it's only going to make it worse. The person you're blaming is going saying, oh God, they expect so much of me, but I didn't know what to do because the right things weren't done for me. So avoid the blame game. The blame game is a big blind spot, and so often the treatment of mental health ends up blaming someone, and that doesn't work. And another blind spot is that people should know everything. Often people try to protect their children by not telling them bad things. And when they don't know bad things, the bad things don't disappear. That just prolongs them. The bad things should be known about and dealt with. But that's not what happens. Grandpa was a drunk and a gambler, and they lost the house because he couldn't make the mortgage payments, and that was a disaster. But we won't tell our children about that, or they never stop talking about it. Or there was an abortion. There was a pregnancy before marriage which ended in abortion, and the mother always felt very sad about that. She felt guilty, but mothers can really mourn the loss of an aborted child. So people don't tell the kids about the bad things, but everybody should know about the bad things. Not every day, but maybe twice a year. It should be made clear. This is exactly what happened. This is why it happened. It was bad, and it's caused these consequences, and this is what we've got to do to fix it. Talking about bad things all day, every day, which some people do, not a good thing, and hushing them up can cause big problems. And another blind spot is I think that mental health should use what I call quick switching. Quick switching. If you've got something that you want to avoid, you've faced it, you've worked out that your life will be better without it, you've talked about it, you've read about it, you've thought about it, you don't want it, you want to get rid of it. One of the techniques is quick switching, but you never hear about quick switching. You hear about taking this medicine or that medicine, or having therapy for years, but everybody should have a few things that they love doing which are harmless and which they can quickly start to do, and whenever this thing that they need to stop doing, they think about it or they start to do it, they quick switch to something harmless and pleasant that stops them doing the harmful thing. And that's what I hope my pocket fruit powder dispensers will help to do. So there we are. Sorry I've repeated a lot of what I said last night, but I didn't have the detail last night, and I'm a bit exhausted today because I thought about so much of it after my live streaming last night, and I worked on it all day, and I've talked to a couple of people about it, and I hope you will realize that there are a lot of blind areas in the care of mental health problems, and I've got 7 tools, 1-minute videos, the Mental Fix-It app, mental health videos, A2Z.com, smilefixit.com, live streaming, and then powder medicines that work in 5 minutes. If you drop it on your tongue and swallow it, you can take it anytime, anywhere, if it's in a pocket dispenser. Whereas tablets and capsules that you swallow have to go right down through your gut, take half an hour to an hour to start to work, and 1 to 2 hours to work strongly. And the powder medicine you drop on your tongue and suck and don't swallow starts to work in 5 minutes and works strongly in 10 to 15 minutes. And if it tastes good, then you get taste conditioning, and soon it starts to work as soon as you taste the medicine. As soon as you drop it on your tongue, it goes to the back, taste buds at the back of your tongue, it starts to work. And that relieves things like social phobia, panic attacks, post-traumatic stress disorder, relieves and many drug cravings. If you can get them early, they're so much weaker, so much less suffering, and that weakens them and until eventually you can break them. Well, that's it. Enough for today. I'm sorry that I don't have time to talk to people, 1,600 of them, but I'm very interested in your thoughts, your comments, your questions and your criticisms. So whatever channel you watch this live streaming on, please communicate if you can through that channel with your comments, questions, criticisms, and or email me. The email for this is healthestuff@gmail.com, spelt the way it sounds, healthestuff@gmail.com, or you can find that email at smilefixit.com, which is easier to remember. And every night after I finish the live streaming and the next morning, I go through all the comments, questions, criticisms, new followers, likes, and try to communicate with as many people as I can. So I think that's enough for today, and today is Saturday, so I'll be back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Perth time, which is 11 a.m. Sydney and Melbourne time, and Saturday evening in the Northern Hemisphere. Sometimes almost 50% of our viewers are in the Northern Hemisphere, and sadly 9 a.m. Perth time, 7 p.m. Perth time, which is 9 p.m. Sydney and Melbourne time, is 7 a.m. New York time, and 4 a.m. Los Angeles time, and some ungodly hour in London and in Sweden and Norway, where we get quite a lot of viewers. So I now do the Sunday session 9 a.m. Perth time, and still do the 7 p.m. sessions on Wednesday evening, Friday evening and Saturday evening. Okay, bye.